The masses have never thirsted after truth. They turn aside from evidence that is not to their taste, preferring to deify error if error seduces them. Whoever can supply them with illusions is easily their master. Whoever attempts to destroy their illusions is always their victim. Gustave Le Bon. The Crowd, a study of the popular mind. Diseases of the body can spread through a population and reach epidemic proportions, but so too can diseases of the mind. Of these mental epidemics, the mass psychosis is the most dangerous. During a mass psychosis, madness becomes the norm in society, and delusional beliefs spread like a contagion. Delusions can take many forms, and madness can manifest in countless ways. The specific manner in which a mass psychosis unfolds differs based on the historical and cultural context of the infected society. In the past, mass psychoses have led to witch hunts, genocides, and even dancing manias. In the modern era, however, the mass psychosis of totalitarianism poses the greatest threat. Totalitarianism is the modern phenomenon of total centralized state power coupled with the obliteration of individual human rights. In the totalized state, there are those in power, and there are the objectified masses, the victims. Arthur Versluis, The New Inquisitions. In a totalitarian society, the population is divided into two groups, the rulers and the ruled. Both groups undergo pathological transformations. The rulers are elevated to an almost godlike status, which contrasts with our nature as imperfect beings, easily corrupted by power. The masses, on the other hand, are transformed into dependent subjects of these pathological rulers, regressing into a childlike state. Hannah Arendt, one of the 20th century's preeminent scholars on totalitarianism, described it as an attempt to transform human nature itself. However, this attempted transformation only turns sound minds into sick ones. As Joost Meerloo, a Dutch medical doctor who studied the mental effects of living under totalitarianism, wrote, "There is, in fact, much that is comparable between the strange reactions of the citizens of totalitarianism and their culture as a whole on the one hand, and the reactions of the sick schizophrenic on the other." Joost Meerloo. The Rape of the Mind. The social transformation under totalitarianism is built upon and sustained by delusions. Only deluded individuals regress into obedient, submissive subjects who hand over control of their lives to politicians and bureaucrats. Only a deluded ruling class believes it has the knowledge and wisdom to control society in a top-down manner. And only under the spell of delusions would anyone believe that a society composed of power-hungry rulers and a regressed population could lead to anything other than suffering and ruin. What triggers the psychosis of totalitarianism? As explored earlier, this mass psychosis begins within a society's ruling class. Politicians, bureaucrats, and crony capitalists are particularly prone to delusions that augment their power. No delusion is more attractive to the power-hungry than the belief that they can and should control society. When the ruling elite becomes possessed by such political ideologies, whether communism, fascism, or technocracy, the next step is to induce the population to accept their rule by infecting them with the mass psychosis of totalitarianism. This psychosis has been induced many times throughout history. As Meerloo explains, it is simply a question of reorganizing and manipulating collective feelings in the proper way. Joost Meerloo, The Rape of the Mind. The general method by which ruling elites accomplish this is called menticide, meaning a killing of the mind. Meerloo further elaborates, "Menticide is an old crime against the human mind and spirit, but systematized anew. It is an organized system of psychological intervention and judicial perversion through which a ruling class can imprint its own opportunistic thoughts upon the minds of those it plans to use and destroy. Joost Meerloo. The rape of the mind. Priming a population for menticide begins with sowing fear. As explained earlier, when individuals are flooded with negative emotions, such as fear or anxiety, they become highly susceptible to delusions. Real, imagined or fabricated threats can be used to sow fear, but a particularly effective technique involves waves of terror. In this technique, periods of fear are staggered with intervals of calm. Each subsequent wave of fear is more intense than the last. As Meerloo writes, each wave of terrorizing creates its effects more easily after a breathing spell than the one that preceded it, because people are still disturbed by their previous experience. Morality becomes lower and lower, and the psychological effects of each new propaganda campaign become stronger. It reaches a public already. Joost Meerloo. The rape of the mind. The world feels like it's spinning faster every day. We're connected in ways we've never been before, yet somehow it feels like we're more disconnected than ever. What we once knew as reality seems to have been replaced by a manufactured version, a version crafted by unseen forces, constantly shaping what we believe to be true. The flood of information we're exposed to is endless. It's everywhere. News, social media, ads, each one telling us what to think, what to fear, how to feel. It's exhausting. And in the midst of it all, we're losing touch with ourselves and each other. The lines between reality and fiction are so blurred that it's hard to know what's real anymore. It's as though we're all caught in a mass psychosis, a shared madness that we're too numb to question. But how did we get here? How did we allow ourselves to fall into this trap? The answer isn't simple. It's not just about technology or the media. It's about how we've allowed ourselves to be manipulated, how we've let the noise drown out our inner voice. We've become so immersed in the flood of information that we no longer know how to think for ourselves, and it's taking its toll. Anxiety, fear, confusion, these are the emotions we live with now. We're overwhelmed by the constant barrage of contradictions, the constant stream of half-truths and outright lies. The result is a world where sanity feels like a distant memory, a world where we're no longer sure what's real, what's true, or even who we are anymore. But there's still hope. The world doesn't have to remain insane. Sanity isn't lost forever. It can be found again, but only if we're willing to step back, to slow down, and to reclaim our ability to think clearly. It's about resisting the pressure to conform to a reality that doesn't serve us, and instead searching for truth in a world that's often too loud to hear it. Sanity isn't just something we wait for. It's something we choose. And when enough of us choose to see the truth, to seek clarity in the midst of confusion, sanity can return. Not through force, not through rebellion, but through awareness, through silence, and through a commitment to think for ourselves. As the noise fades and the world quiets, the path to sanity becomes clear once again. But first, we must choose to walk it. As the world becomes more polarized and divided, the psychological toll becomes evident. Anxiety, depression, and confusion are at all-time highs. People are left feeling isolated, disconnected from each other, and even from themselves. The constant barrage of conflicting information creates a state of perpetual cognitive dissonance. We're no longer sure what we believe, and we begin to lose trust in anything or anyone. What's worse is that many of us are not even aware of how deeply this mass psychosis has taken root. It's become so ingrained in our daily lives that we no longer question the validity of what we're being told or the reality we're being sold. We've become passive participants in a narrative that doesn't serve us. The foundation of this psychosis can be traced back to the overwhelming flood of information. We live in an age where every waking moment is filled with notifications, breaking news, and viral content. But with every piece of information that hits our screens, we lose a little bit of our ability to process it rationally. It's not just the sheer volume of information, it's the constant emotional manipulation behind it. From fear-mongering headlines to sensationalized stories designed to evoke outrage, we are fed a constant diet of chaos and confusion. We are told what to think, who to fear, and how to feel, leaving little room for personal reflection or critical thinking.